our legal officer, Rosie Ferrara, and our Democratic Services officers, Vivian Messenger and Laura Kerman. Without further ado, we now move on with the agenda. Item number 6, application for a premises license at North Weald Station, Station Road, Epping, Essex, CM16 6BT, to consider the application made by the Epping Ongar Railway Holdings Company Limited. Handan, can I ask you to set out the case?
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning. We're here to consider an application for a premises licence under the Licensing Act 2003. An application has been made by Epping Ongar Railway Holdings Limited, 54 St Mary's Lane, Upminster, Essex, RM14 2QT. This is for a new premises licence at North Weald Station, Station Road, Epping, Essex, CM16 6BT. The application is for the following licensable activities. It's for the sale by retail of alcohol, the summer schedule. These standard timings apply from February to October. Friday 9:30 to 1700 hours, Saturday 9:30 to 21:30, Sunday 9:30 to 1700 hours, and this is for on and off sales. The winter schedule, these standard timings apply from November to January. The days and times are Wednesday to Friday, 16:30 to 21:30, Saturday to Sunday, 9:30 to 21:30. When not covered by the above days, the 19th and the 23rd of December will be from 9:30 to 2200 hours, and the 24th of December will be 9:30 to 1300 hours. Opening times of the premises will be Friday 9 a.m. to 17:30, Saturday 9 a.m. to 2200 hours, and Sunday 9 a.m. to 17:30. This application was received on the 27th of July. The responsible authorities have all received a copy of the application. It was also advertised at the premises and in a local newspaper. A copy of the blue notice and newspaper advert has been attached to this report. All residents and businesses within 150 metres radius of the premises were individually consulted. The authority has received 3 representations of objections from local residents and 1 comment from North Weald Parish Council. The objections received relates to the prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Thank you.
Thank you. I now move on to the lead the applicant, Mr. Dean Walton. There are 2 other people with you, Dean. Are they going to speak, or is it just going to be you mainly?
Good morning, Councillor Neville. No, my name is Dean Walton. I'm the General Manager of the Epping Ongar Railway. The 2 people who are with me is Bob Good, or Robert Good, and also John Hathaway. They are a couple of volunteers from the railway who like me, are keen to see and understand the process that we're working through and observe that, basically. They're my support.
Okay. Thank you. If you'd now like to make your case.
Okay, well, thank you. Good morning to Councillor Neville, Chairman, and the officers and the objectors to today's meeting. I'll just give you a little bit of background information about myself and the railway. I'm the General Manager of the Epping Ongar Railway, and I was a volunteer at the railway in November 2011. In 2014, I took a full-time position at the railway, and I'm now the railway's General Manager, and it's in that capacity today that I make this application. Before I get into the details of the application, I'd like to have a little bit of background history about the railway generally. We opened as an extension from Loughton to Epping in 1865, courtesy of the 1859 Epping Railways Act. And over the years, it served the local farms and allowed communities served by the line to expand. In 1994, services on the branch were withdrawn by London Transport, and the railway was subsequently sold. Following a major investment by the current operator, or the current owner, Passenger services commenced in 2012 as a volunteer-led heritage railway operating in Epping and Ongar with stations at both North Weald and Ongar. Our volunteers come from the local area. Many are retired and come from a wide range of backgrounds, including ex-police officers and customs officers, railway professionals, small business owners, and professional engineers. The railway is now an important family-friendly visitor attraction in the district, and in 2019, the last full year of operations for obvious reasons, we carried over 45,000 passengers. Unusually for a visitor attraction of our size, we don't have a premises license to sell alcohol, but instead have made use of the right to sell alcohol on a train that is in the course of its journey, but this is very restrictive. We've successfully applied for many temporary event notices over the years for events ranging from our Real Ale Festival, Santa Specials, Halloween, and murder mystery events. But we now wish to make a single application that will cover most of these. But I'd like to, our Real Ale Festival would continue to be covered by a separate temporary event notice. We'd like to stress, though, that during the application, I was extremely keen to only apply for those hours which we needed during the main part of the season. And the evidence for that is the rather convoluted schedule of hours that the officer read out during the presentation of our case. Which brings up to a bit more detail about our application. The application, as is made in July, is primarily to allow the supply of alcoholic drinks to our passengers. You'll note that we have a winter and summer operating schedule in the application, and that the timings of the hours are geared towards the times that our passenger services are running. Put simply, the licence is intended to allow the volunteers to sell a passenger a bottle of beer, a bottle of wine or prosecco, or other alcoholic drink, along with something to eat at North Weald or on the train. We've identified some seating areas around the station, but these are carriages where people can take drinks, and in the summer there are picnic tables scattered around the station, and of course there is the train itself. There is no additional bar or similar area in our premises. Additionally, passengers will be able to buy a souvenir selection of locally brewed beers from the gift shop to take home. The range of stock will be limited to items such as these. These are a couple of mock-ups I've made of the types of things that we're looking to sell in our shop. These are very much like you would occur at a National Trust property or other heritage location, such as the Royal Gunpowder Mills at Waltham Abbey. As I mentioned before, finally, for this opening statement, I've been joined today by some of the Railways volunteers who are keen to observe the hearing and would join me in encouraging the councillors to approve today's application. That's all I'm going to say for now. Obviously, I'm here to take questions, and I've got some questions myself that I'd like to put towards the objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walton. Councillor Morgan, Councillor Jennings, do you have any questions?
Councillor Jennings, you go first.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was a bit confusing having two different schedules, but I can see where it's going here. So the times that the alcohol, I'm just to reiterate that the times that the alcohol will be sold are within these times that the railway is running and not at any other times. Is that right?
That's right. Our intention very much is to sell alcohol to our passengers who are travelling on our trains.
Right. And again, the sale of so off-license sale would just be as souvenir bottles. Is that correct?
This type of thing, there's an example of there's an example. It's a mock-up I've made of the stuff that we're planning to sell. This is comes a very strong provenance. It's made by the Brentwood Brewing Company, so a good strong local ale that we plan to sell in our shops.
So you're not selling off sales for people to sort of open up and drink in the surrounding area?
No.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question on the summer schedule. So you're not open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, is that right?
That's right.
And then why in the winter time are you open longer then?
In the winter time, we have our Christmas specials. The two things that we have at the moment is we've got our Epping Ongar Light Fantastic trains, which run from about 5:30 in the evening through to about 9:30 on Wednesdays to Sundays. And with those, what we want to do is to offer the opportunity of people to come along, come to the train, have a festive drink of some sort. on their train journey. So they'll come along at 5:30, travel on our train from 6 till 7, and then go home.
Okay. I think that's all at the moment, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to clear up, because I think the councillors have got it, but unfortunately the schedule is rather confusing. It gives opening hours being Friday, Wednesday, and Sunday. No, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But then the underneath that, there's a confusion that you're selling alcohol at different times to that in the winter, but I'm gathering from that your opening times are different in the different seasons.
That's right, Councillor Neville. I mean, I was very much. It took some time to craft the schedule to ensure, as I say, that we only applied to the hours that we needed to sell the alcohol to our passengers. I could understand very clearly if I'd put a simple application through that said I wanted to sell alcohol from 9 till 9, Monday to Sunday, that would have given rise to an alarm, I would have said, from local residents. So we spent some time crafting it to ensure that we only asked for the hours that we wanted to ensure that we can sell alcohol to our passengers.
Thank you. Another question that comes out of the reading the documentation is a number of the objectors have raised the issue that on one of your festivals, Epping Forest was called down because of the noise. Can you expand on that and whether that happened or not?
Well, I've looked through our records and I can find no evidence of any of our events, like the Real Ale Festival, ever being closed down by the police or Epping Forest District Council. I would have hoped for there to be some detail put into the application for such a serious allegation made that we were closed down by the council, essentially, or by the police. What I did do, soon after the application was made, I did speak with the Essex Police licensing officer who went through application in detail, and she made no reference to any concerns that they had about our application and about our previous behaviour and abilities. So when it comes to the objectors, if they've got some specific dates and details, then I might be in a position to answer that. But there's no record I've got of any of our events being closed down by the police.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no more questions from members, I will then ask the objectors in turn if they've got any questions for Mr. Walton. And the first one on my screen is Brian Hughes.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. Just listening to Dean there, I mean, the question raised to him, I didn't think was about when was the Epping Longer Railway shut down. It was just a case of when the council, the local council were called. I mean, there's been numerous calls to the council about various problems and issues with the railway. Noise being one, of course, and the late night events such as the murder mystery nights. So we're not actually saying it was ever closed down, but for sure the council have been contacted on numerous times about either pollution, noise, parking, and dare I say it now regarding alcohol as well. So just to make that clear, no one, well, I'm certainly not implying that the railway was shut down at all, but there has been a lot of contact with Epping Forest District Council, etc., for various reasons, for various issues as a resident we have with the railway.
Have you got a question?
I'll just.
If that's your part of your case, if you've got a question for Mr. Walton.
No, so that I was just clarifying that at the start about what you just discussed with Mr. Walton. But I know Dean's putting various hours here for the sale of alcohol, but who's policing these hours of when the alcohol is actually being sold? How do we know that during these specific hours is the only time alcohol is being sold?
Okay, and Dean, please.
Just, I mean, I do have an opportunity to ask the objective. However, I would refer to the members to the page 48 of the bundle, which is Mr. Hughes's own statement. And in his words, not my words, his words, one event resulted in Epping Forest District Council and the police being called, and the event closed down as noise levels were deemed unacceptable. Now, I don't know if anyone else was listening, and I do believe that this session has been recorded, so we will see very clearly the contrast in what Mr. Hughes put in writing and what he's just mentioned to the committee.
I disagree. I agree with Brian Hughes. I was also, I can support Brian.
Mr. Foster, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, I'd like to know why Dean thinks that, with all the problems that I agree Brian just mentioned, why Dean thinks that he can have a license during the week when children need to sleep, I need to go to work. I mean, he shows abuse to all our neighbourhood in terms of the way they deal with every issue.
Absolutely.
Why he thinks that he can get away with having a during the week license, which doesn't match when he runs the trains generally. He doesn't run the trains normally on a Wednesday. Why he thinks that he can get away with saying that he should have a license, it's just ridiculous.
Mr. Walton.
I actually, hello everybody, I'm Nina.
Can we do it one at a time? Sorry, Nina.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Walton, do you want to reply to Mr. Foster?
Absolutely. I'll go back to our record. I mean, since 2013, we've held an annual Real Ale Festival, which is a somewhat more substantial event occasion than we're proposing by this application, that can attract between 1,500 to 1,800 people over 3 days of the festival. Despite the concerns raised by the residents, I haven't had any specific concerns raised by me by Epping Forest District Council or by the police in relation to noise or disturbance by these events. As I said, we are typically about selling a few bottles of beer in our shop and serving a glass or two of wine.
That's
or
rubbish.
beer.
That's not true. You run events, you run a real ale event. That's not.
Councillor Neville, would you mind perhaps muting Mr. Foster?
Can people just speak it in turn? Mr. Foster, thank you for your question.
That's fine.
And you will have your chance to object in a minute.
Okay. So as I said, and the other side of it is that obviously one of the licence objectives is to prevent the harm to children. And as part of that, we'll be looking to provide relevant training to our volunteers and staff who are involved in the serving of alcohol. We've got a Challenge 25, although Dr. Foss is putting for something a bit different. And within those caveats, I see that that what we're proposing to do is no different from any other licensed premises in the local area. And further than that, our record shows that we have, managed to deliver licensed events over the past few years without incident, as evidenced by the complete lack of evidence around Epping Forest District Council or the police in their dealings with me recently.
Nina Gavins, do you want to now ask a question?
Thank you. Can I just go back to the point that Dean made? I actually put in my email as well, my email of objection, about the event that was closed down at Epinonga Railway, and I believe it was a wedding with a red bus and the ribbons. There was a music event. The bass started at about 4 p.m. and I believe the event was shut down by 10 p.m. and those records should be on file with Epping Forest District Council Environmental Health. I noticed that Dean mentioned that alcohol would be sold on board the railway, yet he's mentioned scattered seating around I presume it's that North Weald and Ongar. Are they near to premises? Because I know at North Weald Station, there's close proximity to Tempest Mead and Kiln Road residents. Where is this scattered seating? Because you don't have a specific inside area other than on the railway trains.
Okay, thank you for that question. Mr. Walton, can you reply to that?
Yes, of course.
You can mute yourself, Nina.
Thank you.
Right. If it's a little bit in my bundle, it's a little bit blurred. But on page 37, we've got a map of the railway, and unfortunately, it's a little bit blurred. But I hope yours is a bit better. The seating. Oh, this is actually it's pretty awful. My reproduction of this, but anyway, we'll see how it goes. At the bottom, where you can see that there's a catering chalet area in front of there, and then also two carriages. So I'm not looking at the screen, and also two carriages is where our sort of covered seating is available. There are other parts of the railway in the summertime, so it might well be down towards the field or on our platforms and the like, where there are picnic tables where people may choose to take a drink away with them before travelling on their train. However, don't forget, people have come to the Epinonga Railway principally to travel on a train. Their main point of getting a drink or something to eat is to take it with them onto the train. That's what we're doing. We're not proposing to produce something a bit like the King's Head pub, for instance, which has got a large beer garden both at the front and at the rear of the premises, where people are invited to spend 1 or 2 hours eating a meal, having a drink. It's very much about providing a service to our passengers. So I hope that answers the question there.
Right. Thank you for that. Unless you have another question, Mr. Gavins, you can make your representations in the bit for you.
I was just obviously the idea that the people are coming to use the train. And then to me, it seems that Dean's argument is, or Dean is suggesting that their idea is that people are going to come and have a couple of drinks, but then it's moving from scattered tables to tables perhaps on the platform. It seems to be that the licensing being applied for, he's got a proposal in his head, but it's got scope for changing quite enormously once the license is in place. And the impact that then has on local residents, public nuisance, protecting children could be huge once that's granted.
Can I have a question?
No, I was just making my point.
Okay, so that's not a question. Okay, well, we'll come, I think.
Well, I have a question still then, because.
Okay, yes, Mr. Hughes, yeah.
I mean, Dean gave his background of his history, etc. But just to give you a bit of a background of Dean, because it is very relevant to what we're discussing. I mean, Dean comes up with these wonderful kind of friendly ideas towards the neighbours, Tempest Mead and Ongar and North Weald. He says things that what people want to hear, but in reality, it never happens. Whatever Dean says and the
Can we have a question?
Measures. I'm building up to my question. Thank you. I'm building up to my question. So my question is, Dean, why is this any different from all the other false promises you've made regarding parking, pollution? And you say yourself, the fundamental reason for the railways is the trains, which I get. So why on earth do you need to sell alcohol if the fundamental reason for people visiting is just to experience the trains? What's the reason for the alcohol?
Mr. Walton.
First of all, I obviously disagree with Mr. Hughes's characterisation of myself as just saying things to keep people happy. The Epinonga Railway complies fully with the requirements placed on it as a heritage railway. I can see you shaking your head, Mr. Hughes. It doesn't look very good from my point of view. I can tell you that we comply with our regulation and our rules. Epping Forest District Council, just for the benefit of the councillors, we spent a lot of time working with the environmental health team at Epping Forest District Council, making various changes to our operations to reduce the impact of our operations on local residents. And it's fairly clear from my point of view that the Epping Forest District Council, in terms of not making any objections to today's application, consider that we are a law-abiding railway that's fully compliant with the relevant regulations. Now, in terms of why we're applying for a license today, It's part of it is administrative ease. We have previously applied for many temporary event notices to cover a range of our events. The time has come, particularly with our Christmas event, where the regime of the temporary event notices is no longer sufficient. We'd have to put so many applications in, and we would granted them, is my expectation, that it becomes an administrative nightmare. And further, by putting in a formal premises application, it allows us now to have a proper discussion with the council, with the councillors and others to understand how we're going to meet those licensing objectives. That's why we put the application forward. There's been a number of questions made about why or our aims or ambitions. I just want to be quite clear. It is solely to sell a few bottles of beer in the shop and also to provide a glass or two of wine to the passengers travelling on our railway. There's no intention here to build some major nightclub or late night attraction or to compete with the King's Head pub or anything. We're just a successful family friendly visitor attraction, hoping to make people's day out with us that little bit better.
Okay, right. Well, we move on now to the objectors to make their representations. Mr. Hughes, if you'd like to go first.
I mean, I think it's all clear where the objections come from. I mean, the main concern, obviously, noise, safety. You know, literally, my house backs onto the area where lots of people will be drinking. And if it deems requesting up to 10 o'clock at night, I mean, people can buy alcohol and then still drink it beyond 10 p.m. at night in the area. There's nothing stopping people doing that. There's nothing stopping people drinking the gift shop beer they're buying as well after 10 o'clock, creating much more noise. Sorry, Dean, you're shaking your head now, so if you can stop that, thank you. There's nothing stopping people drinking the gift shop beer after 10 and causing a mess and havoc in the local area, which backs onto residents. I mean, we all know what alcohol can cause, fights, arguments, etc., and it's in the heart of a residential road. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hughes. Do members have any questions? I see we've lost a member.
No, all members are on the screen.
Oh, they are now. I thought we'd lost Councillor Jennings.
No.
No, she's back. Okay, so do members have any questions for Mr. Hughes?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
No. Councillor Jennings?
Yes, just one question.
Okay.
It seems that most of the complaints, it appears to me that the complaints are about the special events rather than the general everyday running of the train. Can you tell me how many special events you normally have? I know it's probably a difficult question, but should we talk about the winter? How many special events would you expect to have over the winter months?
Is that to me, Councillor Jennings?
Yes, it is, please.
Sorry about that. Yes. Well, our winter services are arranged around our Santa specials and also our newly introduced Light Fantastic services. We run on the Light Fantastics, in my head, it's about 30 evenings we plan to run from the middle of November to the middle of January. And that is 2 trains an evening, which is what we're planning to do. And then for the Santa specials, we run between 10 and 12 days from the beginning of the beginning of December through to Christmas Eve. The reason for the variation is it depends on the precise place where Christmas Eve falls and the school holidays and the children go on. Some years we do. But those are the particular events that we've done in winter.
So
Okay.
30, let me just recap, 30 events.
Well, 30 evenings of running.
30 evenings.
Yeah.
And plus, in addition to that, 10 to 12 days Santa specials.
Yeah, what we do is on the weekends, on the Saturdays and the Sundays when in December when we're running Santa specials. We run Santa specials from about 9:45, I think it is, till 5:30. Then we take an hour's break, and then we run 2 services of our light fantastic. Everything's done and dusted by about 9:30.
I was going to ask you that. What time do they finish?
Well, the other thing I'd like to point out as well is it contrary to Mr. Shu's concerns about people hanging around the lobby of the shop or hanging around the station to carry on drinking. Once the train leaves at about 8:30 or 7:30, depending on which operating day we have, there's no more selling to be done at the railway. The passengers have gone. They've gone off to Ongar, and they're going to come back. And when they come back, they just want to go home. And our volunteers will have gone home well before they get back, or the ones who are selling, they'll be tidying up and then gone. So the hours are put in there essentially to, I would say, give us the flexibility, but just to make it clear that we don't inadvertently fall foul of the law in case of a train running late for some reason, or a bus not arriving, or something like that. That's why those hours are extended. So our plan is, on a normal evening, we would serve alcohol on a light fantastic train until about 7:30, possibly like 7:45, no later than that.
And one of the objectors did mention some noise at a wedding ceremony. How many of those do you think you might have?
We've not. Now then, I remember. Now that I've been prompted and I've been given some detail about the application, about the consent, I remember that was the 12th of April 2019, and what that was, it was a production that we were doing with Channel 5. Some of you may have seen it. It's called Don't Tell the Bride. Channel 5 hired a train on our railway, and then they also asked if they could use and included in that the use of some space at North Weald to hold a wedding. What do you call it? I can't remember what the word you're looking for. It's come to in a minute, but the thing that happens after a wedding, where people go to, and that was
reception.
A reception. That's it.
Yeah.
Reception or breakfast. Yes, those are the words. Thank you for help with that. But a wedding reception, and for that they installed a marquee tent. And they served alcohol. Alcohol was provided freely by the groom. They weren't actually the groom and the bride, and they hadn't been married at that point. One of the they got married the following day, I think it was. But that's not relevant. They had a wedding reception at the party. It wasn't anything to do necessarily with us. At about 9:30 on that evening, I was at home. I received a call or a text message from one or two of the residents that there was a noisy party taking place. I called into the station at that time because we had one of our members of staff there, one of our volunteers there, and as Mrs. Gavins explained, the music was turned off and it was all done and dusted by 10 o'clock. I think that actually demonstrates, in my view, the responsible approach that the railway takes to dealing with these issues, and that as soon as something was brought to my attention, even though I was away off the site, we dealt with it and sorted out. What I don't recognise in the statement that was made by Mrs. Gavins, Brian Hughes, or Dr. Foster was that the police were called and the event was closed down. That's why I couldn't find any record of anything in our records.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Jennings, anything more? No. Okay, Mr. Warden, do you have a specific question for Mr. Hughes, or do you have a more general questions?
A couple of questions. I mean, I'm not sure how relevant these questions are, but I will mention them. Is in the application, one of the concerns that the residents appear to have is that we're going to be attracting lots and lots of people to the railway to come and cause lots of congestion and this way. Mr. Hughes and also perhaps Mrs. Gavins as well have both mentioned it's word for word the same. They're essentially so the question can go to both of these. Epping Ongar Railway do not have sufficient space for customer parking, which results in its visitors parking in Tempest Meaden Station Road, which when busy causes two-way streets become one lane only, often blocked by buses, causing unacceptable place should an emergency occur. I do acknowledge that there's some problems with that, which is why we've worked with others before. One of the questions that I've got for those two people just now is do you therefore support the introduction of suitable parking restrictions in and around Station Road and Tempest Mead?
Okay, Mr. Hughes. Mrs. Ferreira first.
Parking is not something that the licensing committee is concerned about. That's to do with highways. If you're talking about streets.
So that's not relevant.
I'm happy for that. I'm happy for that to be disregarded, so long as that gets disregarded. Okay.
It's relevant from the point of view that the people attending the trains to buy alcohol will need to park somewhere. So in my view, it is relevant.
Okay, I'm happy to answer that because what
it goes hand in hand.
What runs
Mrs.
alongside...
Ferreira first, sorry,
Please,
Mr. Warden.
But Mr. Hughes and Mr. Walton, parking is not part of the licensing process. That is the Highways Authority.
So unfortunately,
you need to take that up with the Highways Authority, and Epping Forest District Council is not the Highways Authority.
That's Essex.
It's Essex County Council.
Yeah. So I'm afraid that question, unfortunately, we can't consider.
Okay. Another one I've got is may or may not be part of it. I think it's worth just drawing it out. Is certainly Nina and also Brian yet again made the identical comment. Nina. Just give me a second. Sorry. You've mentioned the application would surely have a detrimental impact on the remaining public house, which has served local residents for a number of years. This is one of the most ancient pubs in the county of Essex and dates back to nearly 450 years. Now, this may or may not be covered, but I've got a couple of questions for this. The first one is given that our aim is to serve our passengers and not local people, what evidence do either of you have that our application would be detrimental to the King's Head?
Mr. Hughes first, I think.
Sorry, I missed that last bit of question.
Given that our aim is to serve our passengers and not local people, what evidence do either of you have that our application would be detrimental to the King's Head?
I can answer that.
Okay, Ms. Goins.
I believe from, obviously, we've been in conversations with Epinonga Railway and the Northfield Parish Council for a number of years. In fact, we've met with you before with them. My understanding was that whether this is still the case, the King's Head Public House were very supportive of the Epinonga Railway, and in fact, because of the parking problems that were caused by Epinonga Railway, allowed your visitors to use their car park. So it was sort of a reciprocal agreement between the two of you, which then boosted the trade for the King's Head pub. Whether that's still in place or not, that would be for you to answer. So that was an understanding from previous.
Can you clarify, Mr. Walton?
Okay. So your evidence then is saying that rather than being detrimental to the King's Head, we can boost the King's Head. Is that right?
No.
My second point. Well, I may have misunderstood what you said then, Mrs. Gavin. My second question then is I'm aware that many of our personnel, staff and volunteers visit the King's Head pub, who otherwise wouldn't have done so. Do you think, therefore, it's likely that the Epinonga area is good for business for the King's Head? I think from what you've just said.
Yes, I'm not disputing that it's good for business. I'm not disputing that the railway is good for the Epping district as a whole.
I mean, sorry, Chair, do you mind if I just come back to Mrs. Gavins on this particular point? The reason why I'm concerned is that we have what was put down in writing in page 46 of Mrs. Gavin's particular schedule, which says this application would surely have a detrimental impact on the remaining public house, which has served local residents for a number of years.
I think I've clarified that. If you're selling alcohol, you will be taking customers away from the King's Head. I've explained my situation and my thoughts with regards to how it's detrimental to the King's Head pub.
So can I'll just clarify from my own perspective, Ms. Gavins, is because you think people who were using the railway would then go into the pub, but they wouldn't be going into the pub if they had alcohol elsewhere. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. That clarifies that for me, I'm sure. Okay, Miss Gavins has gone. Mr. Foster, do you want to set out your objections?
Yeah, a lot of mine's based on trust and track record. Dean's quite a smooth, clever talker, quite convincing, but unfortunately, it doesn't hold weight because he says, and I'm really pleased that Councillor Judah Jennings noticed that this is not really about some people taking bottles on the train. This is really about the events, and this is really going to be about over Christmas for a month, 30 days, that they can run these huge events. I mean, they're not these little, just carry a bottle aboard a train or carry, these are big events. They cause a huge amount of noise, public nuisance. And Dean is also incorrect that there's been no complaints to the council. Just please talk to Claire Jaggard at the council. Multiple neighbours have complained many times about Epping Ongar Railway. So please interface with her and check her data points, and she will show. You know, I have many examples. They're not really relevant, but the fact that they will run these black smoke trains when they've promised not to and tried to be helpful to us. Dean's gone some way to helping, but we're smoked out of our house. So he can't be trusted. You know, they do run late. They run sometimes whether they're just moving them around at 10:30, 11 o'clock. They have a whole history of not following the rules, or they may be legally following the rules, but they're not taking into account that we live next to it. And therefore, if they're going to expect that we're going to be trusting, and this again, it's all about trust, and I believe Epping Ongar, the council are there to protect its citizens. We are constituents, and you know, I've been discussing with the MPs for Epping and Ongar, and they are taking actions on these things. So I would just like to make sure the committee here is aware you cannot trust Epping Ongar Railway and Dean's words. They will have to be checked and monitored. They should not be allowed it during the week, because during the week, children having trains and drunk people cheering like they were 2 years ago, having those cheerings and noise and all that commotion going on when children are supposed to be in bed by 9 o'clock. And I can guarantee you, if you give the license after 8:30 and if you give it till 10 o'clock, you will be getting massive complaints about the disorder. So, you know, I don't mind them having a afternoon, few drinking possibilities, but when it comes to evenings and when it comes to during the week, if you don't take action, stop that, then I'm sure you'll be getting Brian Hughes and Nina Gavins, all of us, including all the other residents that we're actually representing. So there are multiple neighbours that I wrote the letter representing, and all those neighbours will be launching various different actions against the council for not stopping Epping Ongar Railway and keeping them under control, because they're trying to go too far now. That's my submission.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
spot on, Dr. Foster. Absolutely spot on. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Claire Jaggard is our air quality officer. For those who didn't know, Councillor Morgan and Councillor Jennings, do you have any questions for Mr. Foster, Dr. Foster?
Yes. Sorry, Richard, after you then.
I have no questions.
Oh, right.
Okay. Councillor Jennings.
Yes, Dr. Foster, you mentioned just now actions by MPs. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, it's about the trust. I have a very simple statement to Dean. It's if he respects, and this is where the trust comes in.
Can you just answer my question, please? You just
I've approached. There's a 1999, Heritage Railways Act, I think it is, and it allows them to do basically whatever they want to do. And I'm asking for that to be amended, or just Epping Ongar Railway being told that they should run cleaner air trains. So I'm making an environmental, and the fact that my wife cries when the black smoke goes into my house. I have an asthmatic son, the 76-year-old Jackie next door, she can't be in her house. So there will be various different actions, and the MPs for Epping and Ongar are in Parliament discussing these with the various different groups. So that's the exact answer.
Can I just check that that is part of our remit, cleaner trains? I think we're probably...
No, it's totally separate. It's just part of the, they can't be trusted. They just can't be trusted. They gas us out of our houses. All they had to do is run clean coal, and they don't do that. So I don't.
Our legal officer wants to come in, Rosie Pereira.
Yes, thank you. That's what I want.
If it's smoke and environmental, that's the environmental services. That is not part of the licensing.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay.
It's just track record. Track record.
Yeah, well, we can't take into account the air quality, unfortunately. Councillor Morgan, no questions now.
I think Mr. Walton wanted to.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
I want to make
Mr.
a point,
Walton.
but I've just noticed that one of my, if he may be allowed to speak, one of our volunteers from the railway, Robert Good, is an ex-serving police officer, would like to make a comment, I believe.
Okay, so I'll allow that.
Yes, if I may comment on what Mr. Foster has said, as Dean has indicated, I'm a retired senior police officer, and I simply do not recognise what Mr. Foster has said about not being able to trust the railway, our non-compliance. This simply does not happen. I perform duties on a regular basis as the duty operational manager in charge of the railway, and I take those responsibilities ever so seriously. And quite honestly, what Mr. Foster has said is not true.
Okay, thank you for that. That wasn't a question, though. Do you have a question, Mr. Walton?
There was a couple of there was one question I was going to ask, but I believe it's not relevant. Apart from just to say, obviously I disagree with a lot of what Dr. Foster has to say about the railways. We operate within the legal framework that's set up by ourselves, and we operate legally within that, which would explain why Dr. Foster finds himself now in a position, having exhausted the abilities of Epping Forest District Council to deal with some of the concerns that he has now sought to seek a change in the law, which by itself tells us the point I suppose I would want to make is I don't believe that this is not specifically about trust. This is about why we are applying for.
We have a question, please.
The question I have is the railway was opened in 1865. When was Tempest Mead built?
Our legal officer has come in.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Right. And this is it. You've got the booking hall.
Yes.
I assume that you won't be selling any alcohol from the booking hall, because the booking hall is enclosed in everything red. So I think maybe it might be helpful if you could tell the councillors, using that plan on page 37, where you intend to sell alcohol that they can drink on the premises, that's on license, and where you will sell alcohol for the off license, which I would assume would be only in the gift shop, which means you cannot open the bottles if you buy it in the gift shop.
That's right. So
but I mean, it might be best if everybody could see page 37, and then you could go through it with the councillors and the objectors.
I can do, no problem at all with that. So page 27 is obviously got the wider map of the area. Within that, there's I suppose I'm lucky that I understand the site clearly. So if you need me to point it out to you, let me know. We have on platform 3 we have a catering chalet, which basically sells a range.
If you show it like for that one, so you can know where.
Yeah. The problem is that I what I might just do, if you just give me a second, can I just pull it off the screen? I've only got
Well, why don't I just hold it up like that? And if you could see it, everybody can see it.
Yep. Okay, that's fine.
Would that help?
That helps a lot. So I think it's right. If you lift it further up for me, please. I want you to raise it more. There we go. So I'm looking at working from the bottom. There's a small, I think it's red area called the catering chalet. Now that's on page 38 of the bundle.
Yeah, is that the one here, the catering chalet, or that?
No, it's the one. It's that way. That one. That's the catering chalet. That's on page 38 of the bundle. And what that does is it sells. We sell snacks, pasties, crisps, tea, coffee, and the plan there is to also sell a bottle of beer or a small glass of wine from that area. Then directly in front of that, we've got a small outdoor seating area. As you can see, that's some distance away from any of the houses, and it's also sheltered as well by other various.
Where is that? Is it this one?
No, it's the white line where your finger is. Yeah, that is the closest house to that area. So you can see it's some distance away, and it's afforded a degree of shelter by various bits and pieces. So we've got an outdoor seating area immediately in front of that chalet, and then typically we've got a couple of static carriages. Do you see that, Rosie? Yeah.
Pardon?
Yep. We've got a couple of static carriages that will afford some shelter.
Is that one there?
Correct. And then normally in platform 3, we do sometimes put another carriage in there. It's not always there, but sometimes we do. What I didn't want to do is have a situation where suddenly I put some carriages in platform 3, someone comes along, check how we're operating our license, say, you're not allowed to have people sitting in there, Mr. Walton, because it's not on this schedule. I want to show this is what can happen. Typically, it's only that one on the right hand, the single carriage is what's there, but on other days we have other carriages there. So that's that part there. Now, moving further, Rosie, Chair. Dr.
Yes, I
Foster
can see
raises
the
her
hand up.
Do you want me to carry on, or do you want me to answer?
I think you should complete what you're saying, and then we'll come to Mr. Foster, Dr. Foster.
Okay. On occasions, but not this year, where the pink blob is, there's a possibility of having, and this would happen if we're doing something like a murder mystery or something like that, where we would have a marquee erected there, which will allow a temporary structure that would allow us to occasionally serve alcohol from that. And if need be, we may or may not have some interior seating. Going back to the booking hall.
Where is that?
It's that red, I think it might be a blue blob.
That's it?
That's where I think it is, yep. What that is, occasionally we would want, and we did this successfully on a murder mystery event, is install a temporary bar within the area. It's a covered area. With something like the murder mystery, what we've had is we've offered a complimentary glass of something bubbly or something like that for people to drink. It's a supply of alcohol, not the sale of alcohol on that particular occasion, so that's why it's a licensed activity. There's no seating in there. There's no space in there. So the idea being that we just put something and we can just sell from there.
Sorry, Dean, can you just point out the location of the murder mystery? Where you say you set up a temporary marquee. Can you just point that out in relation to the houses?
It's on that space there where
and where's that in relation to the houses, please?
Well, where that white line is.
Right, so very close then, yeah. Okay.
So it's where that white line is. It's an objective.
Where the houses are, yeah. Thank you.
Then, and it's fair to say that we have successfully applied for a temporary event notice over a number of years on that making use of that particular site for things like the Real Ale Festival, where we've had, say, between 1,500 to 1,800 people gathering over a weekend, and we've not had any, we've successfully applied for it, and we've not had any problems in keeping to that. Then we've got the red blob, which is just next to the that one there. That is our office and shops building, and within that there's a small about a quarter, I think it is, might be a quarter to a third of the floor space is offered to our shop. And I've got a map here on page 41 of the floor space. And at the time of writing, we hadn't been quite clear where we would sell alcohol from. However, so I've included all of the display areas in that. However, I'd be happy to confirm this in writing if need be. I've discussed with the shop manager a couple of days ago, and he's identified a small space on one of the shelves already where he plans to sell alcohol from. And don't forget, the alcohol he's planning to sell from the shop is Isabel Ale and other things like that. So if that helps to confirm that it's a small scale operation, I'd be happy to sort of identify.
And Mrs. Ferreira, was that happy? You happy with that?
I just wanted everybody to know where
Yeah.
they were selling things, because it's a bit of a blob. And I just wanted for him to like point out the different things.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you have a question for Dr. Foster? Because I
don't have anything else.
No.
And then obviously, then the other thing just to point out is that at Christmas time, in that same sort of area, the plan is to erect in and around that area a couple of what I would just call them Christmas chalets, to allow for the sale of alcohol from those points. Again, people take them and then off they go.
Right. Okay, Dr. Foster.
Yeah, Dean, it's a question to Dean. Dean, you keep saying
You had your option for questions earlier. I'm sorry.
Oh, so is it a comment?
This is he's asking questions to you now. You earlier you were asking questions.
He said
to him.
questions. Then I will just repeat Brian's point as a reply that area is right next to the houses, next to my house, and Dean and Epping on Gravel would keep saying for them. I believe that the council, as in you guys, councillors, you are supposed to take a protective attitude to us residents, constituents, and I would just like to know where in all the statements there is the consideration for the residents. So consideration for residents, and where is, by locating right next to the houses, a outdoor pub for 30 days, where the noise comes straight through that tent, straight into the houses. I really ask you not to allow, I don't mind if it's in the train, I don't mind if it's in their building, but it should not be allowed to scatter and be in other places where you get all people sitting and standing and making noise. Please restrict him. Please restrict him.
Thank you very much, Dr. Foster. Now to make your statement, Miss Nina Gavins. We can't hear you. Set, thank you.
Apologies. I would like to again agree with Mr. Hughes and Dr. Foster. I think we can, with the points that have been raised about Mr. Walton and the operation of the railway, it's, he's made a statement saying that people come, use the train, they have a drink and they want to go home. Yet he has just identified a marquee, platform 3, catering, office and shop and Christmas chalets. All of those are in close proximity to the houses, which have children who have to go to school, elderly, vulnerable people. It's too close, and it just seems to me to be an expanse of an area where he's covering all angles that can have tables, sale of alcohol and people sitting there. It's not confined to the railway carriages where people are on the train, which is what he said people like to do. Go on the train, have a drink, go home. Now there are several seating areas for these drinkers.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Morgan and Councillor Jennings, do you have any questions for Nina Gavins?
Actually, I have your question for Mr. Walton. I don't know.
I think if we can stick to any questions for Nina Gavins, I'll come back to you on the question to.
No, no questions.
Okay. So if you haven't got a question, then please ask a question to Mr. Walton.
Just a question. Are you the personal license holder, Mr. Walton, or the designated premises supervisor?
I am the designated premises supervisor, and I'm also the person who's applying for the license for this for the railway as the railway's general manager.
Thank you. Okay, jolly good. Mr. Walton, do you have any new questions that you haven't asked before for Mr. Nina Gavins, or is that it?
I'm just going to say, looking through my notes, I think not. There might be one or two other points that I wish to. I'll pick up during my summary.
Okay, right. Okay, then the objector has a chance to make a final. Objectors have the chance to make a final brief statement if they so wish, or if they feel their points have been made successfully, then it's up to you. Brian Hughes.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, it's going back 10 minutes or so, but when Dr. Foster kind of made reference to the trust issues, I find it very interesting that, you know, we're talking about trust, and then straight away, everything we say is denied, because it was denied by Robert Good, for example, during his few minutes, that these things don't exist, these issues don't exist. So there you can see how the trust issues, why we have trust issues. I mean, we have these complaints, we make these complaints, and suddenly they're not really issues, and they don't, you know, the issues aren't there. So it's just, that itself proves that there are trust issues, because whatever we say is always rejected pretty much by Dean, and a few minutes ago by Robert Good as well, was not experiencing any of these issues. So that is the issue with trust.
Thank you, Brian Hughes. Dr. Foster.
Yeah, I would echo Brian, and I would really strongly request to Epping Ongar Railway, whatever license they get, can they please try and find a way to look after us as residents and constituents? They keep on saying to us we can do whatever we like, and therefore I say the next last bit to the councillors. From my humble, polite point of view, you have a responsibility to protect your residents, constituents, and you've got a chance here to put this situation under control and give them a limited license, not let them get away with everything, because they'll just abuse it and take it too far to the extreme. So I thank you, and thank you for the time available to do this, and I hope you make the right decisions.
Thank you, Dr. Foster. Nina Gavins, do you wish to make a closing statement?
Yes, I would reiterate again the points from the other objectors. Personally, I wouldn't have a problem with alcohol being sold on the trains, but I do object strongly to alcohol being sold on the grounds, because they don't have a proper venue away from local residents, protecting local residents from the public nuisance that will be caused.
Thank you, Nina Gavins. And Dean Walton, now we move to you to make your final statement.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Neville, much appreciated for that. One of the things that we didn't come across during our discussion, but I think it's quite relevant to answering some of the concerns that the objectors have made, is that within our application, I've set out how we plan to deliver the licensing objectives. We will have training for the staff and the volunteers who serve alcohol. We have a strong working relationship with the local police, and we have a CCTV on our premises. We've helped the police locally when they've been looking for missing persons, and we make our documentation, and that relationship will continue along with we will implement a Challenge 25 policy. I don't expect there to be many people, if anyone, coming from the local village. However, I think it's responsible for us to do something like that. And like many other local premises, we will have notices posted at relevant times around the railway to asking people to leave quietly at night. I'm sure you'll find a similar notice posted up at the King's Head pub. That's about that. There's been some mention made about the various forms of regulation and things that apply to the railway. I'd just like to reiterate that we comply with the relevant regulations that apply to us as a railway. So we deal with Epping Forest District Council, we deal with the Office of Road and Rail, and those people, and I'm concerned, I'm convinced about that. Nina did mention about our selling stuff on the train. As the licensing officers will confirm, that's already permitted by our status as a railway, and that we're entitled to sell alcohol on a train when the train is in the course of its journey. The reason for this application is it's too restrictive. I mean, I feel a little bit concerned to have to come to a sort of slight standard. I mean, there's been talk about trust and those issues, but I've got a concern that the objectors' motives at times have been more about clamping down, in their terms, on the railway generally, rather than actually seeing how we can perform as an important local visitor attraction. And within that, I've yet to see any evidence put forward by the objectives that our application as proposed would contravene or undermine the licensing objectives set out by Epping Forest District Council. On the other hand, what I put forward to you is a simple application, notwithstanding the complicated winter and summer schedule, which was put together to demonstrate that we want to sell a simple drink, a bottle of beer or something within those to our local our visitors. Within that, I'd urge the committee members to grant the application as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Walton. We will now go into private session where myself, Councillor Jennings and Councillor Morgan will come to a conclusion on how this application will proceed. Okay. Well, thank you for your attendance, and I will now read out the decision of the subcommittee. This is for a premises on the address of the Epping Ronga Railway, St Mary's, Upminster, Essex, RM14 2QT for a new premises licence at Northfield Station, Station Road, Epping, Essex, CM16 6BT. We consider that the application satisfies the necessary requirements in order to be considered as it is on the prescribed form. It has been advertised and relevant notifications given. We thank all parties for their presentations. We have taken these and the written material submitted to us into account. We considered what is appropriate to promote the 4 licensing objectives and the relevant parts of the Council's licensing policy and the Home Office's guidance. During our deliberations in private session, our advisory officers gave us no advice.
Recording stopped.
The decision of the
recording in progress.
Thank you. The decision of this subcommittee is that the application for a premises licence in respect of Epping Ongar Railway Holdings Limited, 54 St Mary's Lane, Upminster, Essex, RM14 2QT for new premises licence at Northfield Station Road, Epping, Essex, CM16 6BT be granted subject to the following conditions. 1, the conditions which are consistent with the operating schedule, which we consider are reasonable and proportionate and will not undermine the licensing objectives. 2, we're also attaching the mandatory conditions contained in section 19 to 21 of the Licensing Act 2003. The applicants and the objectors are reminded of their right to appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days of the date of the written notification of this decision. Please also be reminded that licenses in general can be reviewed. And that is the decision of the committee. We move on to item number 7, exclusion of press and public. Well, there's none of that today. So I declare this meeting closed.